Welcome to the Ducky One modding tutorial. Let's jump right into it, but if at any point during the video you want to check out any of the products I use to mod this keyboard, you can check right over there in the left corner, but let's jump into modding it step one. All right, so step one is to take off all of those keycaps with a keycap puller. All of the Ducky One keyboards will include a keycap and switch puller, which we'll be using later. All right, step two is after you have all those switches off, we're gonna take apart the case. Now, if you have the Mini, you will not need to do this, as you can remove the PCB without taking apart the case. But if you do have the SF or the TKL like me, you'll need to take apart the case. Now first, gently but firmly snap off the left and the right end caps. Now do make sure to be careful here, as I did break off one of the little clips of my end caps. Then after that, unscrew the 3 screws on the left and the right sides, holding up the top blue piece in place. Then gently unsnap the top blue piece. Do be careful again here not to break off any clips, as I broke 3 clips in total trying to figure out how to disassemble the case. All right, moving on to step 3, unscrew the PCB and plate from the bottom of the case and then remove it. This will only be 4 screws, so it is quite easy to do. Next, use your switch puller to pull out all of the switches. Now, because this has an extremely nice silicone PCB dampener, there is no need to change or replace this, so you can leave the screws in the back of the PCB alone if you don't want to take the plate off of the PCB. Moving on to step 4, set your PCB and plate aside for the moment and get your bottom case piece with the included foam. Now for this build, we're going to be keeping the included foam and just add to it. Now the stock foam does not touch the bottom of the case almost anywhere. It's really resting on those flip up riser parts inside of the case. So we're going to cut out a piece of 1/8 inch butyl rubber and set that between the 2 flip up risers. That will be under the case foam. Take out the stock foam and put that rubber in between there. Now you can use just typical EVA foam. You can use rug gripper, really whatever you want to use there. Butyl rubber is just very thick and I personally like using it. We're then going to use some EVA foam for the other parts. We're going to add a big piece of EVA foam on top of that butyl rubber, and then that case foam is going to again go over. The stock foam is going to go over that. So I added a large piece, and then I added some more EVA foam on the left and the right side, and then you're going to add that stock foam again on top of what you've just done. Now because there's only 4 case screws and they're at very like left and right positions, you don't really have to cut anything out, like any circles or any cutouts for those standoffs. So that is really easy to do. All right, moving on to step 5, we're going to take off the stock stabilizers. Now set aside the case with the foam that you've just modded and grab the plate and the PCB again. Now I have detached my plate from the PCB. However, you don't need to. Now to take off the stabilizers from the plate, we are going to press in these pins in either the top or the bottom of the stabs and then pull or push from beneath. Now do keep in mind, if you've done this on other boards, these are definitely harder as you need to push those pins in quite a bit further. So I just use my keycap puller to press them in all the way and then pull them right up, and that is how you remove them. So just do that to all of the stabilizers. Next, to disassemble them, you're going to twist the wire to a 90-degree angle to the stabilizer housing, and you should hear an audible click. Then pull the wire out and everything should fall apart very easily. Now as you take apart the stabs, grab some toilet paper and you're going to clean off the lube on the wire. There's a very small amount of lube on the wire. You can wash them and be very thorough, but I'm lazy and I'm just wiping it off the wire. Moving on to step 6, modding and lubing the stabilizers. So you're going to separate the wires, stem, and housing. After that, grab some medical tape or Band-Aids, although I do recommend medical tape. You also are going to need scissors. Now instead of holy modding for this build, we are going to just wrap the ends of the wire with medical tape or Band-Aids, as it is much faster and easier. However, if you prefer the holy mod, which gives slightly better results, here is how to do it. Use the timestamp below if you prefer just wrapping. Now cut a piece of the medical tape, a long piece with the width of the hole in the stem of the stabilizer. Okay, so that's a lot to say, but basically you're just cutting this to the width of that little hole that you see in the stabilizer. After you get that all cut out, you're gonna feed the piece of the medical tape through the hole with a slant on it. There's a flat section with 2 holes, and then on the other side there's 1 hole and it kind of has a slant on it. You want to stick it in the one that has the slant until it is flush with the angled section. You then want to stick that piece of tape down and stick it kind of with your tweezer to the angled section, and then move to the flat section and stick it down there. We're then going to cut off the remaining tape with a small amount sticking out. You're then going to take that small amount and flip it over, kind of stick it over into that second hole on the flat section with 2 holes. You're going to stick it into that upper hole. This is just to make sure it doesn't come loose while it's on your board. And then you rinse and repeat, and that is the Holy Mod. Now that you either skipped or just learned how to Holy Mod, let's wrap these. This is going to be faster than the Holy Mod, but again, there is a timestamp below if you want to skip this if you are Holy Modding yours. All right, so cut a piece of medical tape the size of the end of the wire and then wrap it around it without any overlap. So basically wrap it around and then cut the excess off, and that's pretty much it. I mean, that's all you have to do. So it's much faster than Holy Modding, but if you do prefer making your keyboard really perfect, do that Holy Mod. All right, now after that, we are going to not use dielectric grease. We're actually going to be using a lighter grease, Krytox 205 grade 0. Now we're going to use this to lube all parts of the stabilizers. So grab your stem and evenly coat the left and the right side with 205 grade 0. And again, you're going to do that to the left and the right walls. Just do this evenly. Now set that down and grab your housing and repeat this same process, but apply it to the inside of the left and the right walls. Continue to reassemble the housing and the stem with the stem's side with the 2 holes facing the opening of the housing. Once completed, you're going to lube the taped part of the wire and slightly past that 90-degree point. Now here we're going to be more generous than we were on the stem or the housing. After completed, reassemble the wire into the stem and housing by inserting the wire at a 90-degree angle and then turning it until you hear an audible snap. And congrats, you are done. Let's move on to step 7, which is the Bandaid mod. So we're still technically modding the stabilizers, but we're not actually touching the stabilizers physically. To do this, we're going to take some medical tape again, and we are going to put small pieces of medical tape where those stabilizers will be inserted into the plate. Now, I have my plate taken off of that PCB. It'll probably be easier to do this if it's off, although you could do it if it's not off. So just flip the thing around and unscrew that PCB from the plate and you should be good to go. Now, this will make it feel more like they are screw-in stabilizers because they'll be super tight in the board. Now, these stabilizers are already fairly tight in the board, so I wouldn't recommend getting like more expensive like Durox stabilizers. But if you do the Bandaid mod, these things are super tight, so it's really good. All right, but after that's all completed and they're all installed, reinstall your stabilizers just like you took them out, but opposite. All right, step 8. This gets fun. If you took off your PCB, reattach this to the plate with the silicone in between, then grab your switches, which I highly recommend lubing. And here's how you lube a switch super fast if you don't know how to. First, you're gonna need a switch opener, and this is not a Kale, this is an MX style opener. You're just gonna place it on that switch opener, press down gently, and then pull your switch apart. Now there's gonna be the stem right here, the top housing, the spring, and then the bottom housing. First, what you're gonna do is get the stem, put a little bit of lube on one side, and then the other side, put some on the front, and then those sides, and kind of just blend it all together. Now, you can do this as scientifically as you want or not. The thing that you wanna do is just make sure that you have good consistency. After you have that done, we're gonna flip this over and we're gonna kind of swirl around the bottom right there. All right, now set that down, grab your bottom housing right here, and then we're gonna put a little dab on the left side and then some on the right rails right there. And we're gonna feather that in, make sure that you don't have any white spots. You don't want that in this. Once that's all feathered out, I do a little ring around there for the spring. And then we're gonna do these 2 little leaves right here, just like that. Then after that, you're gonna get your spring. And I'm gonna be quite generous with this. You're just gonna go around the base. This is okay if it's not feathered in. So you're gonna go around the outside as well as the inside. This will just get rid of any unnecessary ping. After you have that done, get your housing, put the spring in there, get your stem, place it on the spring, then get your top housing and just kind of put everything back together. And then, okay, now make sure that if you are using tactile switches to not lube the metal leaf or the legs of the stem. That will take away the tactility. Now I'm using tactile Akko Ocean Blues, which just sound amazing and feel amazing when lubed. Super impressive. Now, while installing the switches into the hot swappable PCB, make sure to hold the back of the hot swap sockets to make sure that they don't pop off. And moving on to step 9, we're gonna put the plate and the PCB back into the case, but we're gonna use these teeny little O-rings around the standoffs and the screws. Now, this is gonna make it feel more like a gasket mount, and this should give a more even feel and sound to your board. So first, put the O-rings around each screw. This does take a little bit of time to fiddle with, but you'll get it eventually. Now then, the trick to doing this easier than a lot of other people do this is you're gonna actually basically put your screws into the PCB and plate, and then you're gonna screw on the other O-rings on the other side of the PCB where the screws poke out. This makes it so much easier to install rather than fiddling around with those little O-rings falling off. Now after this, all you gotta do is just set it back into the case and screw it back in. Now make sure not to over tighten at this part because it's very easy to over tighten. Moving on to step 10, reinstall the top blue plastic case piece and screw it back in. However, wait until step 12 if you want to change the color of this part or those other two left and right end caps. Make sure to screw in the 3 screws on the left and the right side when reinstalling your blue top plastic piece. Then install the left and the right end caps, but again, like I said, if you want to change the colors, wait until step 12. Now, step 11, install the keycaps. I am using these $35 GMK electric clones, which are actually really awesome for the money, and I will be doing a separate video on these clones very soon, so subscribe below if you want to see that. But moving on to step 12, we are going to spray paint it. I only painted the 2 end caps because I liked how the blue looked with these keycaps, but first I'm going to sand them down with 400 grit sandpaper. I'm using a paint and primer spray paint, so if you're using a typical spray paint, make sure to paint first with primer, sand that, and then paint with your color for about 2 coats. First, to start the painting process, I sprayed them with a dish soap and water mixture, just a tiny bit of dish soap, and then I sanded them while wet with 400 grit sandpaper. I then cleaned them off, dried them off, and then mounted them in a cardboard box and painted the first coat. After I painted the first coat, I then did another coat, and I did a pretty messy job, but again, these are only end caps, so it didn't really matter too much. I let this dry overnight, and then I reinstalled them. Now, I would advise you to do a clear coat if this is going to be the entire case. However, just because these are end caps, I didn't want to take the time. However, look at this thing. The lubed ocean blues feel and sound freaking awesome lubed. Also, the colorway looks sick with the painted end caps. Remember also, if you want to check out anything I used in this video, you can click over in the left corner, or I do have Amazon links below also. But enough talk. Listen to the before and after sound test.